It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, September 19th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's taking a look at Rick Tocchet's day one as Flyers head coach.
All right.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, lots of goings on at day one of Flyers training camp. And it was, I got to say, really cool to see like the full team there. You know, we've had development camp and rookie camp. So it's been all like the young guys, but to see the vets come back and everybody's back and, you know, the new blood with the new coaching staff, just really energized for this upcoming season. And I think, you know, they revealed the new marketing tagline for the season. We've moved on from a new era of orange to brick by brick. And I think like it actually kind of works. Like it's cheesy, but it works. And I appreciate that kind of sentiment, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it really is true when you're kind of redoing a team that that is the concept. So I appreciated that. And yeah, there's always good feelings, new season, you know, so the guys and now there's a new coach and we find out how the interpersonal relationships have changed. And the one thing I felt good about for the show is that we did talk a lot about Rick Tocchet's puck possession, and now he's really starting to get into that. So I felt like we did a good, you know, we did a good job prepping everybody on that.
Yeah, and just how important that was and that he was gonna get into kind of play away from the puck as well very early
Right.
on. Like, that was something we talked about and, like, trying to build the system from the ground up, you know,
Yeah.
starting from the very beginning, and I think, you know, he mentioned a lot of that after the first couple of skates and first practices there. He thought it was a good pace, that, you know, there's going to be some bumps and there were some sloppy moments, but it's new drills for everybody to adjust to. So that's kind of to be expected. But man, like just the level of detail of X's and O's we got from Rick Tocchet was really refreshing.
Yeah, and they get to have practice at a normal time, not ridiculously early in the morning like John liked. So that's nice for everybody, the players, media, everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You know, you mentioned about puck possession and, you know, instead of obviously they didn't have like the rope skate or like no pucks on day one. No, they're getting straight into it, but really building slowly. So I think Tocchet really emphasized the details and, you know, have to look at, you know, the very specifics of the breakout and, you know, defensive plays and things like that. And I just appreciated all of his like small, even observations he had about different players or how things went overall and what he was looking to establish. And just like getting to those fundamentals and defensively, you know, he mentioned very specifically that the goalies on this team should only have to play half the net, that the rest of the
Right.
defense is responsible for the rest of it so that the goalie doesn't have to do miraculous side to side and post to post because the defense will be there to cover it appropriately. And like, God, what a breath of fresh air that was.
Yeah, it's a nice concept instead of like blaming the defenseman, right? So I think that's a real positive for Rick Tocchet. You know, the one thing I could say is having watched the Penguins practice, just because I'm here in Pittsburgh at that rink, teams don't have a lot of time. We talked about this with 7 preseason games. So they really had to change the way camp went. And there were a lot of alterations from what I could tell, even for that team. So I know the Flyers, same thing. And that's why they're scrimmaging early. And that's because they got to play like right away.
Yeah, they don't get as many practices and it's more games.
No.
And I think, obviously very much looking forward to next season where it's fewer
Yes.
preseason games and more regular season games
We all are looking
instead.
forward to that.
Oh, yeah. And, I think that, one of the things that Rick Tocchet brings to the table, obviously, is his experience as a player and his being a player in Philadelphia. So he knows like all those little nuances about how to talk to these guys because he knows exactly what they're going through as players, but he
Mhm.
also knows the overarching setting of playing in Philadelphia. And I just think that helps the communication a lot.
Yeah, there's no airs with Rick Tocchet. Like, it's not like you have to do the Rick Tocchet way or it's the highway like we would hear with previous coaches. And so I don't get that feeling at all. And it does feel more communicative and it feels like, yeah, it's more of like, hey, this is what I expect. And he'll help him along the way, but it's not going to be like overbearing and it's not going to be like, hey, it has to be this way exactly. He's open to change and for players' sake, and I think that's good too.
Yeah, he talked a little bit about that, especially in communicating with Sean Couturier as the captain,
Right.
that he had a couple of conversations with him where they went back and forth on different things that they needed to do. And
Which is a
first
couple
off, I
more than he had with Torts. That's what Sean said.
yes, yes, but I appreciate that like two-way street conversation
Yes.
of it, but I also really appreciate the transparency from Rick Tocchet on that front. And I think, it's something that's really important and that the, administration management side of things have talked about transparency, but, we hadn't really seen evidence of that yet with Rick Tocchet, obviously, because, we hadn't seen him yet. So I think the fact that that kind of philosophy is also part of what Rick Tocchet is doing, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think we really saw like what open communication could look like. I think we saw that players seem less stressed. Like you went through a John Tortorella training camp, even for the first day, and players would be stressed and worn out and on guard, very much on guard when they were doing interviews and putting up a little bit of an extra wall. And you don't see that right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually thinking about that. That God, like a lot of these guys have so much to say, and that's so
Right.
unusual for training camp.
Because
Like,
they're not afraid to say
yeah,
it. They were like worried if they could say it before.
yeah. But it was just like there was so much thoughtfulness coming out of everybody. And I think,
Yes,
it was such a great way to kick off training camp for
it
sure.
is. It's a really good way.
Yeah, he was talking about, or when he was asked about creating lines and the different combinations that were out there. Trevor Zegras centered a line with Travis Konecny and Alex Bump, which was I think really interesting. And we kind of figured that he would mix in some of the rookies with the vets. And
Sure.
um, one thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, and he's mentioned this before, that he looked to Scotty Bowman as a kind of an example for how to coach, and
Yeah.
but just mentioned the concept of having like more rigid pairs but then rotating in a third
Hmm.
player, and that can re-energize a group. Now you don't want to like pull the plug on a three-man line too soon because that can cause problems as well, and because you're building chemistry, but that he really does like this concept of pairs, and like Zegras and TK, a very appealing pair, I gotta say.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of potential there with those two, and some wide open hockey that could be played with those two.
Yeah, I think so. And so I was very intrigued by that combination. And I think that, it's a really good learning experience for Alex Bump. That is for sure, playing with
For
those
sure.
two. And I think it's really good
I
for
mean,
all
he'll see
three
what
of
it's
them.
like to really. Yes, he'll see what it's like to really play at pace because he hasn't really had to do that yet. Meaning an
Yeah,
NHL pace. It's way different than anything he's ever had to do.
Right. And I think, Travis Konecny, sometimes when he's worn out, it's a problem. But when he's on his game and when he's in shape, like he can move with the best of them. And I
Yes.
think that it's a really good example to set for Alex Bump. And I think he's the perfect person to get Trevor Zegras integrated into this team
Yes.
and working to Zegras's strengths in terms of his creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. No question about it. And apparently Zegras has creativity now with face-offs because of Sean Couturier's ranking in the EA game, in the NHL
Yes.
game. So that was
Yes.
kind of a funny thing.
It was actually really funny. There is so much more to talk about here. We got to talk about the blue line side of things, especially Cam York and how his first day went. We're going to also talk more about Noah Cates and that line. We've talked a lot about if he's going to stay at center or not, and I'm going to say yes based on what we've heard so
Yeah, it
far.
seems that way now. Yeah.
But we're going to get into a lot of that coming up next.
The NFL season's finally here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for a kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick and easy and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. I would still go with the Baltimore Ravens. I kind of like them to win the Super Bowl. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, we will, of course, be back on Monday to talk more about training camp. We'll have the first preseason game to talk about as well. Plus, we'll have a new nemesis of the week. We're going to get to your poll question results about the overall look at this season that y'all answered a little bit later in today's show as well. Now, talking about Cam York here, I think, he didn't, Rick Tocchet didn't talk a lot about the blue line. He talked about the defense overall, all conceptually and systematically, but really kind of dug into it with Cam York. And I think we all understand like that the expectations are higher there. Cam York will be the first one to tell you that based
Mm-hmm.
on what he had to say after the skate as well. But Rick Tocchet mentioned specifically that Todd Reardon could help York take his game to another level. And he saw little bits of what might be possible and things to build on based on some of the work that he did on the rush in the practice.
Okay. I mean, sure. I'm open to everything. We'll see. Todd's good. Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, Cam York, agreed that there was a lot of really good pace to the practice and that it was a really good introduction to the systems for him. Really appreciated the intelligence of the coaching staff. I mean, what are you going to say? But also, like, I think that based on the experience we know he's had with the prior head coach, it's been a problem. Now, of course, like he did get along with Bradshaw really well, but he mentioned that
Yes.
Reardon had a lot of similarities to Bradshaw. So he thinks that the transition is going to be pretty smooth. And I think that's important, especially when it comes to Cam York and his game, right?
Yeah, I think more familiarity, is going to be good for him because again, he does have that pressure on him. They're hoping for more offense, a lot more offense. Whether it's there or not, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to find out. So I think if he's more comfortable on defense, at least the opportunity exists.
Yeah, I thought there were two kind of key things that Cam York talked about that I think bode well, at least for getting off on the right foot, to be determined. But I thought, he mentioned like multiple times about not gripping the stick too tight. And so he obviously knows that was an issue before.
Right.
And I think that that's just important for him to recognize like where the weaknesses are and
Right.
how
What
he's
went wrong?
what went wrong and how he's going to get better offensively. Not just that he has to, but how and what are the steps he's going to take and what to look out for that could be a repeat problem. So I think he had some really good self-awareness, which I was pretty happy to see.
Yeah, there's no question he's going to get off on a better foot this season than he did last year. Like it's a guarantee.
I would say so. And I was also pretty impressed that he said he spent some significant time talking to Quinn Hughes about Rick Tocchet and the system, and so that he could kind of get like intel and get a head start on the system. And just that kind of proactiveness, I think, is going to help him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe Quinn Hughes said you're gonna have to shoot the puck a lot, dude, because we talked about
Yeah.
that.
It's funny, like when we were talking about Rick Tocchet's system and, the blue line and the different possibilities of pairings and combos and all of that stuff, we said multiple times a show when we were talking about his systems that, Cam York just isn't a player like Quinn Hughes. And so you have to take that into consideration. And Cam York said, I'm not the same player as Quinn Hughes. And I was just
It's
like,
funny.
this is like, it's not funny per se, but it's like good. It's just like, oh God.
No,
So
it's good.
he was talking to Quinn Hughes about the system to get educated on it, but knows that his style of play is different and there's a different level there. So he knows that he has to adjust his individual game to what that is. And I just found that to be like so promising, I would say.
Yeah, Quinn doing that is really good for him because Quinn's very smart and he's kind of like talking to a coach. And Quinn is one of the smarter defensemen as far as breaking
Oh,
down
yeah.
play. And so, yeah, if he picked up anything from him, it's going to help him.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to Quinn Hughes's interviews and some of the long form ones, and he is really, really smart. Although sometimes, like, I can't tell the difference between him and Jack. Like, their voices are very, very similar.
That's true.
But yeah, I just thought that aspect of it was really good. And kind of pivoting back to Noah Cates for a moment, you look for these little nuggets on day one of what players' names does your new head coach talk about. And we had been trying to figure out if Noah Cates would stay at center, move out to wing, based on the fact that he was one of the few players that Tocchet brought up, like, kind of on his own, and brought up the Cates line with Forster and Brink about noticing how successful it was last year, that that Cates does everything well that he could see in that practice. And it's like, yeah, that's Noah Cates, right?
Yeah, that's his all-purpose guy. Like you put him out there, you don't worry about Noah Cates. You don't worry about anything. Every shift's going to be consistent. Everything's good. He gels well with whoever you put on a line with. You need those kinds of players, especially when you're a new coach in a new city. Like you're in a different spot now. So yeah, he's going to be, coach's best friend for sure. The only thing is, again, I'm going to say it, looking through notes, looking online, searching, I didn't see any quotes on Owen Tippett.
Nope. Did not.
Nope.
Oh God, this is going to be like that running joke for this season. It
might be.
And then suddenly it will turn into an alarm bell. But
he's going to have to say something about him at some point. So.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think obviously one of the biggest questions, like we talked about on yesterday's show, is Matvei Michkov season 2. And Michkov was available to the media after practice. He's still working through a translator, though he did answer one or two questions in English, and said, like, when he was asked if his English was coming along, he said it's better. So like something along those lines. So he answered like 2 questions that were 1-word answers in English. But what he did say is that English is not an excuse in terms of being able to communicate in practice and with the team and with the coaches, because hockey's hockey, and that his English has gotten to the point where he's not going to have those hurdles in the practice setting or in the game setting. He may still need a translator for the interviews for a little bit, but at least when it comes to the hockey, he seems to be making a lot of progress. And he has the same attitude as he did last year, that he just wants to make the playoffs and he's going to work hard. And
sure. Well, we're going to find out what he looks like in games and how hard he did work this summer.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And I think obviously Trevor Zegras is the other name of
Yeah.
players, since he's new in terms of how his experience was on day one. He made a very funny joke about the colors being similar, so it was easier to make the transition to the Flyers. But all jokes aside, he did come into town several weeks early and got to know the guys, and
Yeah.
he's been working out and doing the captain's practices and all of that, and trying to build that chemistry with Travis Konecny, like we talked about earlier.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah, like TK is amazing, you just got to give him the puck as much as possible. And that is the correct answer, Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, Matvei Michkov may be the most talented guy in the team, but Konechny's still the best until he, takes away that crown.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think obviously you can tell he's going to fight to play center, and that's the position he's played for most of his career, and so far that's where they want him. And I think that's where he'll be for the time being, unless something drastic changes. But
Yeah, I think he'll be there
I
all preseason and through part of the regular season, kind of like, let's see what he can do. And then if at some point they're just getting killed on faceoffs or just something's not right, then they'll make a decision. But I think that is the plan.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And as far as like some of the younger players go, Alex Bump was the one they talked about the most after the practice sessions, mostly because of that line with Zegras and Travis Konecny. And somebody asked Travis Konecny about, does he have any advice for Alex Bump, or like, what would you tell him? And he said, to pick your spots. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just pay attention to the details and do what's being asked of you. And I think that's pretty sound advice. And I think it's perfect for Alex Bump in particular.
No, it's good. It's sound advice. He's not putting too much pressure on him. Again, this isn't like a Matthew Nye situation. It's different. They're different kind of players. So I think if people kind of look at that and say, well, Matthew Nyes came out of college, he played in it's like, it's a little different.
I absolutely agree. And, Sean Couturier, I think, is really taking on a bigger responsibility as captain this year with the coaching transition. This is his first coaching transition
Right.
as captain. And so he's kind of the go-between, and he's talked to Rick Tocchet quite a bit. And like I said, they've had this open communication between the two of them, and is like continuing to lead by example here. So I think it's going to be a really interesting preseason.
Well, I think the big thing is this coach is letting him lead, where the other coach, when he was either talking down to him a little bit about his play or diminishing his minutes, then you diminish the captaincy. And I think that happened pretty quickly last year.
Yeah, I will always wonder what John Tortorella wanted in terms of Sean Couturier being named captain and the timing of that. Like, if that's something that he approved of or didn't approve of at the time, it's just one of those nagging questions, right?
Yeah.
But I think Couturier has certainly kind of wiped that slate clean and
Yeah, he's
moved
good.
forward.
I mean, he could have held
He's a pro.
a grudge.
I love talking to him.
He's a pro. He really does, represent the team well. He's just everything that's good in players. Because, yeah, I mean, me as a human, I might have held a grudge, but he doesn't.
He doesn't. And also, he's a cat guy, and I like cats. So
Cats are good.
we will
We all
always,
know about our
appreciate
cats.
that. I know. Owen Tippett is also a cat guy. So
I appreciate that.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, dogs are fine, but we love a good cat guy. All right. We do have our final off-season poll question results to get to, where we asked you what you think the Flyers results are going to be this season. We are going to get to those coming up next. Okay, so that, like I said, that final poll question of this off season. What are your expectations for the Philadelphia Flyers this upcoming season? Let us know your reasoning in the comments. Your choices were make the playoffs, just miss the playoffs but have successful prospect development, just miss the playoffs but don't show strong prospect development, and do worse than last season. And I gotta say, I am so happy with our listeners. I love you all. Because you are so positive about this upcoming season. And I think with a dash of the right amount of realism here, because the number one vote getter was just miss the playoffs, but have a successful prospect development season, 68% of the vote. And I think that's where we are likely to be, where we should be. And that's the benchmark for a successful season this year.
Yeah, there's no question that's the benchmark, and there's no way they're going to fall to the depths of what I think the Penguins will be this year. So
Ugh.
watching the Penguins in practice, like I kind of saw some stuff. So I don't think they could fall to the depths of that. So I think this is very much the way.
Yeah, and I appreciate that high percentage there. And
Me too.
21% of you think that they'll make the playoffs. And honestly, it's higher than I thought it might be, but that is a great number. A 21%, like a fifth of you think they have a shot at the playoffs. And I love that optimism.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with optimism. We'll see what happens when the rubber meets the road, but yeah.
Yeah, and we had a couple comments along those lines. Eugene commented, "The young guys know there's talent coming up in the system, which should motivate them. There was so much uncertainty last year with who is going, who is staying, and there's no torts. Yeah, and I choose to be optimistic until proven otherwise. Goalies will have
That's
a
fine.
9-10 save percentage. I can hope, can't I?" And
He
yes,
can
you
hope. I
can.
won't go any further than that.
Yeah, listen, 9-10 is a lofty goal.
It's a
We
lofty goal
know.
based on what we've been
But
seeing. Yes.
if we're somewhere between 900 and 910 for this goalie tandem, I'm taking a win. I'm taking a win on
Sure.
that.
Oh no, that would be a win.
Yeah, and Flyer 10624 commented, "I know it's wishful thinking, but I like Zegras, Vladar, and Dvorak getting fresh starts under Rick Tocchet. Our younger players should all improve over last year, including Urson. I believe it'll be a battle with Columbus, Montreal, and Buffalo for the wild card. Michkov could be the difference."
I mean, that's possible. I would take out Buffalo and put in Ottawa, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Montreal might actually wind up in the top 3 in the Atlantic rather than the
If they
wild
get good
card, but we'll
goaltending, they
see.
probably will. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But all that aside, I do think you have the fresh startness of the new coach, and not just one guy coming in, but like enough that there's enough of like the fresh new car smell energy, right? That
Yeah.
we could be looking at that kind of influence here, and there's a lot to be said for that. And so I do appreciate the positivity overall here.
Yeah, you want a camp to start off like this. I didn't love the way camp started last year. We were pretty honest about that. So this is way different.
Oh, it just feels so much better. So much better. And obviously the results will show what they show. And
Right.
we've talked about some of the misgivings or some of the weaknesses that the team has on paper, but I think that the energy that this team has right now could help overcome some of those
It
weaknesses,
could.
I think.
It
And
could.
and
I
so
mean,
I
having good
that's real
energy
good to see.
yeah, having good energy is a really good thing, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, so only 11% of you were more on the negative side here, which is, again, pretty low, pretty low. 89% to 11% when all is said and done. So we had 5% saying just missed the playoffs, but not strong prospect development, and 6% said do worse than last season. So I think we're starting off on the right foot here, Russ.
Yeah, definitely are.
All right, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will, in fact, be back on Monday to talk more about training camp and the first preseason game and the next one ahead, because they come fast and furious once they start.
They do.
As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.